Now, depending on who you speak to, these things are either one of the most underrated used cars money can buy, while also being one of the most overrated used cars money can buy. Because, like, to the fans, this thing is like the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing, but to the not fans, this is just a catastrophic engine failure waiting to happen. So which is it? Is there any truth to those vicious rumors about these things blowing up, or are these like one of the most ultimate and budget performance cars you can buy? Let's find out. Now let's get something straight right away. Here in Australia and in the UK and Europe and South Africa, this is a Mazda6 MPS. In Japan, it's a Mazdaspeed Tenza, and in North America, it's a Mazdaspeed6. Really odd pronunciation, that, but you guys can't help having an accent. Anyway, what exactly is this thing? Well, you know, like back in the day, all-wheel drive turbocharged performance cars were basically like rally cars modified for the road, like the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution and the Subaru WRX STI. And then the Europeans came along and injected like a whole bunch of luxury and prestige with the Golf R, the Audi S3 and the AMG A45. Well, this thing is kind of like the perfect balance between those two camps. In standard form, it may look quite innocent, being basically an ever so slightly aggressive looking Mazda 6 from 2005 to 2007. But engine wise, this thing is packing a 190 kilowatt, 2.3 litre turbocharged 4, very cleverly sending power to all four wheels via a 6-speed manual transmission. And thanks to those facts, many compare this car to the likes of the Evo and the STI. But then those people then go on to claim that this is nowhere near as focused or as capable. And they're right, but they're idiots. See, the MPS was never designed to dominate a rally stage. Mazda took a more sensible and mature approach, building a street car that spiced up the driving experience rather than building a track car and trying to make it livable. Comparing a Mazda 6 MPS to the likes of an Evo or an STI, it's like comparing a fine Barossa Valley Shiraz to a couple of shots of vodka. Both are going to rock your world, but in very different ways. Now, here's a fun fact. The 2005 MPS was actually a Series 1. The 2006 and this, the 2007, are a Series 2. But if you do need to know all the specific details about the MPS, jump on ReDriven.com and check out our awesome and completely free ReDriven cheat sheet. Basically, it's like the ultimate used Mazda 6 MPS or Mazdaspeed6 buyer's guide. Actually, just on the cheat sheet and this video, we are going to be focusing purely on the MPS or Mazdaspeed6 variants. We're not covering the normal Mazda 6s. We will get to those down the track. Now, we should mention, and to the eagle-eyed of you, this MPS isn't exactly standard, but in saying that, it has been modified with really intelligent and tasteful modifications. Actually, to the point that the experts we spoke to basically said that if you're going to modify one, do it like this. Now, if you also do need to know all of the modification details of this car, look in the description down there. It's all listed out. Now, looks-wise, yeah, it does look very similar to just a normal Mazda 6, obviously short of the pumped bonnet, the more aggressive front bar, and kind of it's a bit more stancy. But underneath, this thing's actually 50% stiffer than a normal Mazda 6. But in saying that, there are a few issues that we need to cover, but we'll do them soon. Now, when we started ReDriven a couple of years ago, Sam, the guy that's holding the camera, and I decided that if we were to ever have advertising on ReDriven, it has to be something that brings value to you guys. And that's why we've never advertised like VPNs or website builders or teeth whitening or anything like that. But that's why we've also partnered now with Fast & Finance, because Fast & Finance does bring genuine value to you guys. If you're financing your next new car, used car, a classic, a great import, any car, they can save you money on your finance. And if you do finance your car through Fast & Finance via the link in the description down there, you're going to get a free $250 fuel voucher. How awesome is that? Now, interior-wise, firstly, it's a really, really nice place to be. It feels pretty kind of premium. In saying that, but design-wise, it's in this interesting spot where it's kind of not new enough to feel like a brand new car, but it's also not old enough to feel kind of retro cool. It's just in that it does feel a little bit dated. It is showing its age a little bit. Now, the materials used in here, okay, you've got some kind of scratchy plastics here and there, but then like this center console section, there's this, I'd almost call it like a grey painted gloss brush kind of effect, and it looks really nice. And I don't know why more manufacturers don't use this. They tend to go to, you know, gloss black plastic, which scratches really easily. This looks nice. Okay, now wear and tear wise in this particular car, the original owner of this was that person's family car, and this does get used a fair bit. And you can kind of tell, like the leather has gone a little bit hard, like that could be kind of, you know, restored with a really good detail. Some of the stitching is coming loose. That is a bit of a common problem. There's like, look, understandably a few little scratches and stuff on the plastic down here, and yeah, it's showing its age, but not too bad. Obviously, different cars are going to show different levels of aging and wear and tear. Some of these look like utter crap, other ones look brand spanking new. This one, perfectly in between. Actually, also on wear and tear, like everything that you touch, like all the buttons, all the switchgear, still feels really good. Like the steering wheel leather, it's going a little bit shiny. Even the actual gear shifter, there's a few scratches and marks there, but that can be rejuvenated. Now, as practicality up front goes, heaps. Firstly, you've got a little storage cubby hole up here on top of the dash. Good sized glove box there. You've got 2 cup holders here. You've got like a duplex style armrest because you've got 2 tiers. Good little cubby hole here. There's a spot down here, which is an ashtray and a cigarette lighter. If you're a smoker, which you shouldn't be because it's gross. It obviously has door bins, but the door bins hold our fabulous brand new ReDriven water bottle. How sexy is that thing? Available on the merch store at redriven.com. There's a spot just here in case you're a fan of like picking your fingernails or pulling off dried skin or hair. You can store it there. Gross, but true. There's also a little cubby hole, hidden cubby hole down there. I think that's it. There's nothing under the seats. Not a spot for your sunglasses here. That's it. Now in the back seat, I'm exactly 16 centimetres taller than a celebrity with the initials MPS, Mr. Patrick Stewart. This is in my driving position and it's bloody comfortable. Heaps of knee room, heaps of foot room. Just a really nice and comfortable place to be. Although some of the, let's say the seating upholstery is kind of getting a bit weirdly out of shape. This is a bit of a common problem with these. There's like some of the bits of metal are kind of sticking up. It's not that uncomfortable. It's almost like a bit of a bum massage. But yeah, it's interesting. What's also interesting is the wear and tear in the back seat. Again, because the leather kind of gets a bit dry and needs to be restored, it is cracking and splitting. It can be fixed, but yeah, just wear and tear is not fabulous back here. It's just, yeah, Aussie sun and our harsh conditions in this leather. They don't like to play nicely together. Now, practicality in the back seat, you have Uno map pocket. You've got another spot for an ashtray. Gross. And there's a pull down armrest with a couple of cup holders there. And finally, space in the boot. Massive, huge amounts of space back here. Would have been nice if they made these in a wagon, but still, this is pretty good. Now, as far as tech and features go, look, the good news is, this being the very top of the range Mazda 6, it comes with all of the toys. The bad news is, all of the toys are from like 17 years ago, so they're a little bit underwhelming these days. But you will still get a pretty decent sounding 6-speaker stereo, climate control and remote central locking, and all of this. However, there was an optional leather pack available, which this car is fitted with, that features, funnily enough, a leather interior, a sunroof, and a very nice Bose stereo system. Now look, obviously you can forget like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, actually really any phone connectivity. It can be fitted with aftermarket gear, but just be careful because we have seen reports that if you cheap out on that stuff, it can get pretty dodgy and glitchy. Now, as far as safety goes, look, this car is all-wheel drive, so because of physics, fundamentally, it's going to be glued to the road, so unless you drive like a muppet, it's going to be pretty safe. In saying that, however, when ANCAP tested the Mazda 6 that this car is based on back in 2002, it only received a 4-star rating in 2002, so that's, let's say, interesting in terms of safety. But to take you through all the individual safety features that this has, we're going to cut to another voiceover, but this time we're going to do it in our best, say, period correct, best motoring kind of way.
標準装備の安全機能には6つのエアバッグ、ABS、ブレーキアシスト、エレクトロニックスタビリティコントロール、トラクションコントロールが含まれます。
Now, if you do need all of the specific details of the tech, the features, the equipment, all that sort of stuff, jump on ReDriven.com, check out the cheat sheet. It has everything you need to know. Okay, so what's it like to drive? Well, you know what? Let's answer that by focusing on a few criticisms. They're not that fast. Rubbish. In standard form, it is plenty fast enough, and this one with a few intelligent mods is bloody rapid. This whole fascination with cars having to be faster and faster is just stupid. Look, if you're attending track days every weekend, or if your main hobby is drag racing, yeah, look, sure, obsess over performance figures and how fast a car is. But in the real world, dealing with potholes and Sydney traffic and a police force that seems hell-bent on taking your license away, this thing, plenty fast enough. And as far as what this engine is actually like to use, so enjoyable. Like, the power is really smooth and kind of muscular. Like, pulling onto a freeway is genuinely enjoyable. And like overtaking, if you floor it, again, it's plenty fast enough. Actually, you know what? If an MPS isn't fast enough for you, That's not the car's fault, that's your lack of driving talent, because a really good driver doesn't need a fast car to have fun.
Yeah, but they understeer all over the place.
No, it doesn't. Even in standard form, but especially with this suspension package, it just doesn't understeer. The only time it will understeer is if you enter a corner way too fast. But again, that's not the car's fault, you're just a shit driver. Look, if you really, really push hard, it will start to understeer like pretty much every modern day car. But if you're doing that sort of driving on a public road, well, you're a dickhead. And like, yeah, you could do it on a track, but these were never really designed to be a track car. Just drive these with mechanical sympathy and they handle great.
But it's an old Mazda. They just rattle and sound horrible.
Okay, yeah, some MPSs, there are reports of rattles and squeaks and things like that, and if you do bolt some really cheap aftermarket suspension on it where there's like no ride compliance, over time it is going to get pretty rattly. In this one, there are a few little odd noises here and there, but again, like this car's getting old, it's got a lot of Ks on it, you've got to expect a few little rattles and squeaks. Like even the engine sounds pretty good.
Yeah, okay, but like overall, they're just a bit shit, aren't they?
Look, no, it's not. Like even after all of these years and thousands of kilometers, this car still nails its brief perfectly. Look, overall, it's an incredibly rapid and very, very enjoyable street car. Look, it does like that kind of ultra driver focused pedigree of like an Evo or an STI, but in saying that, this is far more comfortable and just easier and nicer to live with on a daily basis. And look, even in saying that, this does feel like special. Like, you know, a more direct competitor is like the Liberty or Legacy in the different turbo models, or even like a fast Mondeo. But this feels more unique. Now, look, I know at the start of the video we said it's stupid to compare an MPS to an Evo or an STI, but have you guys seen the prices of Evos and STIs of this generation of late? At the absolute cheapest, they're like $30,000, but at the most, they're asking like $90,000. So one of these for somewhere between 10 and 20 grand is a bargain. In saying that, we haven't covered what goes wrong with it yet, so hold tight. Okay, so what goes wrong with these? Let's start with the exterior. First things first, unfortunately, it's rust and corrosion. Now, this generally only happens in colder climates where the roads are salted, and it generally happens to the subframe and kind of the rear sill area. Not a real common problem here in Australia, but it does happen. Okay, next up is the paint. The paint on these is notoriously thin. It scratches and marks really easily. And unlike this one, on some that haven't been cared for well, the paint is starting to fade. And understandably, a full quality respray is going to be bloody expensive. Now, there are a couple of sporadic reports about electronic gremlins. Things like door lock actuators, the power mirrors, power windows, even the headlights, they can have some issues. We wouldn't say they're really common problems, but they can occur. Okay, this next one is not exactly the car's fault as such, but because this is a performance car and they are becoming very affordable and they're technically P-plater friendly, unfortunately a lot of people on a tight budget with minimal driving ability tend to buy these and then drive beyond the car's limits and then, you know, run into the scenery with great vigor and enthusiasm and then cut corners when repairing them. So you've got to be really careful of dodgy repair work. Actually, there's a whole bunch of other things you do need to check out, not just with this car, but with any used car. And we've made doing that easy by creating the ultimate used car buyer's guide. Link is up there and down in the description. Guys, please watch that, not just if you're buying an MPS, but any used car, especially a performance car, because it could save you thousands. Now inside there are a few reports of the climate control not working properly. Either the recirculation doesn't work or sometimes the aircon itself just doesn't blow cold air. If you are in the market for one of these, make sure you test all of the air conditioning functions and make sure they all work. Oh, also on the air conditioning, the little LED lights behind some of the controls, they can kind of glitch out, but the way to fix it is just giving it a bit of a solid whack. That generally works. Next up, the seat stitching, especially on leather models, it's known to fray and break, which it is in this car. It's a really, really common problem. Not too hard to fix, but it's just upholstery. There's also like the odd sporadic reports. These are not common reports at all, of just like random electronic gremlins. Like sometimes a check engine light will pop up or a couple of buttons won't work properly. Not common, sporadic. Also, in terms of ergonomics, some people have really complained about the seat comfort. Personally, I find them really, really nice. They could be a little bit more supportive, and I think that's one of the complaints. It is sort of a performance car, but the seats feel a bit maybe too luxury. A little bit more bolstering would be nice. Now, before we get into mechanically what can go wrong, firstly, a massive thank you to Jackson for lending us his MPS. Guys, if you want to see more of this car, check out his Instagram. The link is down there in the description somewhere. And also a massive thank you to everybody in the MPS and Mazda Speed owners groups and forums, all that sort of stuff. You guys are legends, especially Jay Rolfe, who's basically like a walking MPS Bible, and to Nick and Jordan from N&J Automotive. Guys, if you're in Sydney, go and reach out to these guys. They know more about MPSs than anyone. They are the experts. Anyway, speaking of qualified mechanics, I'm not one, so I'm not qualified to tell you what goes wrong with these mechanically. But Jim is.
If these things have had a pretty good service history and they're unmolested, by and large, they have a typical Mazda reliability, which is pretty good. But the ones that have been modified, either modified heavily or poorly, or the ones that get leaned on a little bit too hard with some questionable operator technique, well then some cracks start to appear. And when I say cracks, I mean that literally. The whole pedal box assembly, where it's bolted to the firewall, the cracks can develop there, and that becomes much worse when the clutch is upgraded because there's more load on the clutch assembly and the firewall cracks pretty badly. Engine-wise, and this is worse in ones that have been poorly serviced, we see timing chain issues and we see camshaft drive gear issues, and that's the adjustable sprocket and the solenoid that controls that. Often that clogs up and causes all sorts of problems, and sometimes that gear just completely self-destructs. Sometimes we see PCV issues, that's the engine breather system, and that can cause the engine to run lean. Sometimes we see fuel pressure and injector issues, but that can also make the engine run lean. And sometimes if they're overboosted or tuned poorly, well, that can also make them run lean, which can all lead to burnt valves and sometimes piston failure too. The right-hand engine mount can often be a problem, and that basically just wears and loses its ability to absorb vibration, and it feels like you're driving around in a vibrating or massage chair, which is okay if that's what you're into, but typically a new mount makes a huge difference. And speaking of mounts, it's the same for the gearbox and more so the rear diff mounts. They often flog out, usually made worse by operator technique. Another problem is the transfer case can just completely explode, and there are some cool billet bearing caps that can strengthen that, and they actually do make a huge difference. Gearbox wise, there are a lot of complaints about just general gearbox noise, which is usually a sign of a bearing failure. And sometimes we see selector and synchro ring issues, and sometimes the cables just need adjusting, and that can make a huge difference too. And just again, if the car has been well looked after and well maintained, well, they do really have a pretty good reliability track record. But if it's been modified and modified poorly, look, they are going to have problems. So just keep an eye out for those.
Okay, so should you buy one? Look, we can't really say an overall yes or no because it really comes down to the specific example that you're looking at. If you can find one like our test car here that's clearly been loved and cared for, yeah, absolutely, you should buy one. If you can find an MPS exactly like this that has a full and thorough service history, has clearly been fastidiously maintained and loved for its entire life, and shows no signs of abuse or mistreatment, snap it up, because examples like this are rare and they're a performance car bargain. Look, they're certainly not perfect in any way, and you're going to be spending money maintaining them no matter what, but examples like this one are very bloody special. But many aren't. Thanks to the high performance and tuning abilities and the low cost of admission, plenty of MPSs have been neglected, driven far beyond their limits, or are just downright abused. And unless you're buying one as a project car, look, we'd be avoiding these ones at all costs. You might think you're saving money buying a cheaper or rougher example, but guys, it's going to cost you way more in the long run. Find a mint condition example like this and pay the bit extra. It is going to be worth it. And don't drive it like a dickhead, and it's going to be one hell of a car. So guys, I've got a question for you. What do you think? Massively overrated, massively underrated? Let us know what you think in the comments. See you next time. But to those that don't like these, they're not fans, they've gone totally blank. And then the Europeans came along and blah, 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 blah. However, there was a very tasty leather pack available, which this car is fitted with, but it is going to cost you more money in the long run. Find a mint condition example like this, and I've gone blank on the rest of the line, damn it.